Hey guys, welcome to the Minds Panel Show. I'm Gov Spiders of Minds.com, social media of ideas and discussion. And today we have a real treat live from DEF CON. We have Eijah from the founder of DemonSaw, Believe in the Right to Share. It's an encrypted file sharing platform. It's got a lot of hype at DEF CON, and I think you guys are planning a new release. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show, guys. I really appreciate it. And DEF CON's been amazing. We just launched version 3.0 of DemonSaw this morning about 4 a.m. So about 7 a.m. Eastern time, and it was exciting. It's been a good launch so far, and it's exciting to be here. So far the launch has been good. The platform's been stable, which is always a positive thing when you launch something new.
I found the platform about a month ago, and I have been absolutely obsessed. It's been a lot of fun learning and all of the file sharing. I thought it was very cool that you guys offer anonymity as a native feature. It sort of reminds me of locking the internet open. Believe to Share really resonates with me. I think that it's very cool that it also includes chat and message. It creates a social environment within this sharing that's also not subject to oppressive forces.
Exactly.
But I find it very interesting that you guys are a fully decentralized mesh-based network and not peer-to-peer compared to a lot of your other competitor services. How do you manage to do that?
Yeah, so that's one of the handful of things that really differentiates Deemsaw from the other apps, and a lot of people would be surprised to know that uh, until recently, well, first of all, I've written all the code myself for Deemsaw, so all three versions, and just until recently, Deemsaw was all me for the past 3 years, and balancing and juggling architectural complexities that was a big challenge and continues to be a big challenge. One of the things I noticed about 3 years ago was that we had a lot of applications that were peer-to-peer. So we had peer-to-peer apps that did file sharing, and we had centralized apps that did cloud-based storage. But I got a little disenchanted with the constant battle over centralized versus decentralized, with the explanation of decentralized being peer-to-peer. And I did a lot of soul searching, and it occurred to me that there's no balance, there's no hybrid model between the two extremes. That it seems like apps have to choose between peer-to-peer, which is an extreme form of decentralization, or the cloud, which is an extreme form of centralization. And when I started remembering some of the TCP/IP and networking courses I took for my undergraduate and master's, I realized that we had a perfect model for a network topology that could solve security, privacy, and anonymity concerns, at least from a social standpoint, at the physical layers of the OSI stack. When you look at the internet framework, the internet backbone, it is designed around a router-based, anonymous, stateless topology. And so what I did is, for Demonsaw, I simply copied that, and I based the Demonsaw network on the lowest layers of the internet backbone, which is routers blindly sending packets to other routers to eventually arrive at a destination. So really, it's kind of coming full circle. I just re-implemented that at a higher layer.
And I know that during the early foundation of the internet, there was a fight to either keep things anonymous or to label and identify everything. And crypto has only been technically legal for the public to use for technical purposes for the last 24 years, which hasn't given us a lot of time to get to the place we are now. And I think we're really starting to get a lot of the networking virality effect behind us. And this cause is really moving forward, and people are really recognizing how important an open and free internet really is. I heard that in the you're going grouping routers. Users can create their own routers and their own protocols for routing them together to create private groups already, but what'll be the benefit for grouping multiple routers of users together?
Yeah, so that's a great question. There's really two at a very, very high level. When you look at what I did with Demonsaw, there's a lot of cool stuff I put into it. The code and how we approach security and anonymity is very unique, but there's two main huge fundamental components. One is this idea of social crypto, which you probably want to talk about later, and that is the idea that we can derive extremely complex symmetric keys without having to exchange keys over the wire from entropy input from things that we already share in context. And the second part of that was giving the network topology control to you individually as a user of Demonsaw. So the ability to configure your network and host your own routers and really control your own endpoints is a powerful and unique feature of Demonsaw. We have people that use Demonsaw for so many, and keep in mind, I don't have a list of everybody who downloads it or everybody who uses it. All that I know about it, the use cases, comes from people that either post to forums or tell me about it or email me or thank me in the hallways of DEF CON. But some of those that have told me that they use Demonsaw and explained how they use it, we have hackers that are using it secretly in private groups, in routers that they host, in $5 a month VPSs from Vultr and DigitalOcean. We also have people that host their own hardware. We have people that use public routers and create private groups and share information. Just recently I had a discussion with the DEF CON group 801, which is a local DEF CON group, that told me they want to start building out Demonsaw and use it to share all of their files. And even a week ago, the Dark Tangent, who's the founder of DEF CON, responded to a tweet that the document repository and the media server for DEF CON should also have a Demonsaw interface. And there's even on the internet a gentleman, I guess it's a gentleman or a company, who uses Demonsaw for legal distribution and delivery of medical marijuana to his customers. I had never envisioned these use cases and these specific examples, but all of them are awesome, and all of them are unique. So it's really up to you how you want to break up and design your network. And there's a variety of benefits to each configuration.
Yeah, it's absolutely been blowing me away. The potential is incredible. I see that there's no login or registration when I come and download it. It's a very quick download. You open up the application, and I'm just choosing a pseudonym. And other than that context, there's nothing really to identify me. But at the same time, it comes up as normal web traffic. So there's no really any way to detect that users are using the platform to communicate in any of these ways, which I think is incredible. And I really do think that we're using this encryption as defense against the dark arts, like you said, at DEF CON last year. Right.
Absolutely, and I want the listeners to understand something that's very, very important for me, and that is Demonsaw is not an application that promotes or condones piracy. It's not a file sharing app. Demonsaw is a secure, anonymous information sharing platform that gives you as the end user back control. And just like the responsibility that we each have when we get behind the wheel of a car, or when we do anything that requires training, it's up to us to use it appropriately and to abide by the rules of the land. So it's not meant to be a malicious or an illegal app. In fact, there are people who use it in healthcare. I have somebody who uses Demonsaw so that his customers, he's a doctor and he's connected to a network of doctors. It allows his patients to get access to their medical records through Demonsaw. There's very, very unique ways to use it, and it doesn't require any form of sign up or email. In fact, this has blown people away. Once John McAfee, I think at the last Hack Miami keynote he gave a few months ago, he said nothing in life is free. Well, when I designed Demonsaw and I put it up on the website, I totally gave it away for free. I don't track anything. I don't even have a donate button. I've never made any money. In fact, I never even had a model for monetization. I wanted to build an app that was the app that I wanted other companies to build for me. And that's how I approached it, with zero ideas on how to make money. I don't collect your email. I never will. I don't log. It's a portable executable. There's no installs. And I just wanted it to be the way that I want to be treated as a customer. And I firmly believe that if we put the customers and the individuals first, the revenue stream will come later. I don't think I have to treat customers and users as a commodity or a number in order to make money.
Yeah, I really prefer that attitude, that sort of open source libre attitude to things. I understand that you've made Daemon Crypt the pretty much the skeleton of all of the encryption for Demonsaw, fully open source, and that there's been some talk of making Demonsaw 1.0, even though I haven't tried it, making that open source as well.
Definitely, absolutely. And the one question that's always asked, in fact, I had a couple interviews earlier today, was it was brought up again, and it's a very fair question, and it's not one I shy away from, or it's not one I dodge. I'm very honest and transparent and real, and I try to make myself extremely vulnerable to the hacker community and the programmer community and anybody at large. DemonSaw is not entirely open source yet, but I've tried to open source as much as I can, including the Daemon Crypt, which is the lightweight C++11 wrapper around a beautifully well-written crypto library called Crypto++. Crypto++ is the crypto engine on which DemonSaw is built, and I give all the credit and all the kudos to that team. It's an open source product. It's a beautiful product. I wrote a very usable wrapper around that I MIT open source licensed last year, and I will be updating the GitHub repository in a couple of days with the new version of Daemon Crypt, which I debuted at DEF CON. I had a couple of workshops on Thursday, which we used Daemon Crypt. So all of the Deemsaw source code is not open source yet, but I've been very honest why. And here's the reason behind it is I fully funded Deemsaw myself. Although it's free for you guys to download and use, and I never log, and I don't have ads, and I never will, I've had to use a lot of my savings to pay for everything from stickers to T-shirts to flights to DEF CON to you name it. I mean, business cards, the expenses add up. So I needed to find a way that I could keep doing Demonsaw full time and yet make money without going against any of the promises I had made you guys. So a lot of the source code is not open source until I can make a business version, which we just announced on Thursday, called Clear Skies. Once I can sell the business version to the enterprise and make money, then I'm going to have the opportunity to open source probably Demonsaw 1.0 and probably even Demonsaw 2.0 fully under GPL license to the community. In the meantime, I will be hiring a well-respected and well-known company to do a third-party audit of the Demonsaw 3.0 source code to alleviate some of the concerns that have been raised, correctly raised. Because let's face it, I might be a very good programmer, but I'm still human, and I make mistakes like all of us, and so it's important to have another set of eyes.
Yeah, it's a piece of art, and the encryption is there. I mean, it's definitely simplified the entire process for the average user. I've already turned a few people. We have plans to potentially use it for storing all of our media files for our show, because we kind of do a hashtag remix everything here. We'll take quotes from all different types of segments and put them together. So we need to quickly be able to go back through files and segments and share them between each other, and it fits the bill exactly where we need it. I understand you were a senior programmer in the development of GTA. I was wondering how you were feeling about their stance towards the mod community and the manipulation of the game and people adding things to it. Just knowing your stance on freedom of information and those things.
That's a great question. I worked for Rockstar Games for almost 5 years, and I was one of the most senior programmers at the company, and I was even the acting associate technical director of the New England studio, which is basically the second highest engineer in that studio. Um, on a path of promotion that would have given me probably my own studio within 2 or 3 years. So it was a wonderful position. They had a lot of trust in me, a lot of respect, and I resigned last October to focus on Demonsaw full time. And just so the readers and listeners understand, I have the most respect for Rockstar Games. I am extremely loyal. I mean, I know the secrets about the future, or at least what they're working on for the next 5 to 7 years. But you know, I'll never reveal those because I love Rockstar. I miss Rockstar. I left on very amicable terms. In fact, they didn't even escort me out my last day. They didn't even give me a box. They basically asked for my fob, and then the studio head said, "You leave whenever you're comfortable. Stay for hours if you want. Do whatever you want." They didn't shut off my network access. They didn't deny me access to the source code repository. It was that's the type of trust and respect that we have for each other. So um, I love that company, but I love what I do now even more. And what I do now, I feel is where I need to be. In terms of the modding community, there's a that's a very difficult question to answer because on one hand, it's extremely difficult to make a video game the caliber of GTA 5. I'll just give you a little insight into what goes into this. First of all, a game like GTA 5 can have anywhere between 1 and 5 million lines of code. So we're talking about millions of lines of code. And it can take 5 years or more to make with hundreds up to 1,000 of people. The GTA 5, by the end of the development cycle, we had the entire studio, all the studios, about 1,000 people working on GTA 5. Now, the amount of money involved to make that game is tremendous. And if a game fails, it can ruin a studio, and it can cause hundreds of people to lose their jobs. So there's a lot of responsibility around the success of these big games. And we see studios failing all the time. You know, we saw the failure of from BioShock Infinite. You know, studios shut down all the time. And to release a game, you almost have to guarantee profitability so that you can do it again. Launching games on consoles is extremely lucrative and profitable. Launching games on PC is not. Now keep in mind, I'm not advocating for not launching on PC, but there's a lot of rampant piracy on PC. So a lot of companies that do still launch games on PC, not to mention Linux as well, do so taking a huge risk. There is a monetization model that's growing, such as Steam and GOG, but it's very risky. So the more open that a company like Rockstar makes their game code, supporting mods, supporting an API, the more they have to assume a risk for hacking. And the more people hack and download their games without paying, none of the developers get any of that money. And trust me, as a previous game developer, just to give you an example, at the end of Max Payne 3, Rockstar, all the Rockstar studios working on that were forced to work 100-hour weeks. So the last 2 months of Max Payne 3, I worked 100-hour weeks for over 2 months without a day off just to ship Max Payne 3. Now, some of the studios worked 80, some worked 90, some worked over 100, but imagine 14.5-hour days for 7 days straight for over 2 months to produce a piece of art that is easily stolen. That's a risk that is really painful. And this is the honest truth. It takes money out of our pockets, and we pour our heart and souls into it. And it's not just this community. I mean, there's a lot of community. The music and the video and the movies and everything. But I imagine a lot of their stance on that has to do with piracy reduction. I've always believed that the way we solve piracy is not by implementing DRM, not by preventing mods. I believe we stop piracy by offering an awesome product at a fair price in a convenient way, the Netflix model. And I think if we do that, I think we'll garner the respect of our user base, and we won't have to worry about piracy anymore. I don't know about you, but I would rather watch something on Netflix than torrent it any day.
Yeah, I think that's actually an incredible perspective of that, because it really is that sort of ease of use versus ease of obtainability with ease of obtainability, because definitely nobody's going to torrent anything that's on Netflix, and you can sort of see that right off the bat. That's pretty easy for someone to get access to. And it definitely, there is a balance between that darker DRM side versus the question of copyright and patents being intrusive on innovation, because both are true in different ways. That there has to be a bridge that is gapped somewhere, and it's hard to find that commonplace. All of these people definitely do need their correct payment and all of these things, but deeper than that, it's that the scale and the model of the internet that we have right now is not a proper model of trust, and it's not scalable for social net or individual sharing, like you've said before. And we are a social network. Minds.com is a social network, and we're trying to create a lot of these communication solutions as well, for how users can interact on a centralized framework. We have these pre-existing data lines and have to come up with a way to interact safely and securely with one another. And I think Demonsaw is definitely taking a lot of the steps to streamline these processes.
Awesome. Yeah, I totally agree, and I think we're witnessing the beginning of change. And a lot of times I'll quote or I'll tweet, change is coming. The best is yet to come, and I firmly believe this. I believe that there's two ways to implement change in our lives. I believe the first way is a top-down approach, which organizations like the ACLU and the EFF, work tirelessly at. They constantly pour their energy and effort into that. In fact, here at DEF CON, we sold about 200 or so Demonsaw shirts this weekend, and all proceeds, or Demonsaw shirts this weekend, and all proceeds from those shirt sales we're donating. John McAfee and I are donating to the EFF. It's just a small token of our gratitude and appreciation. It's just, but you guys are the ones who gave us the money, but when we're taking that, we're giving it to the EFF. So we can help the organizations that are trying to lobby on our behalf and are trying to change the laws of the land. But unfortunately, it's so difficult to do that because we're outnumbered, we're outfinanced, and it's such a long, long road. The other way to change the system is to do it from the bottom up. And if there's one thing I know how to do well, it is to write code and subvert systems. And it's so much easier for me to sit down and to write C++ code and release an app like Deemsaw that empowers all of us to change the system from the foundation. It's the David versus Goliath. In fact, I would say it's a David versus an army of Goliaths. We can fight them outright, or we can hack their armor or hack their swords to break. And it's a different approach. And I think that's the modern warfare, and it's the modern way that we protect our privacy as individuals. Hackers cannot be stopped, and in the end, we will win. But it's all about our privacy. It's all about guaranteeing personal liberties and freedoms, and we will all fight for those things because we're entitled for them as citizens of this world.
That's incredible. I know that you and John McAfee have been spending a lot of time together over the last few years, and I really do think that all of these different people of interest, as well as everyone around the internet that share these values, really do have to come together under maybe not a single banner, but a single idea. And we talk a lot on this show about other things at Imaginarium as far as ego and all of these. Everyone wants, their important product or something to lead the charge, but I really think you have to kind of put your money where your mouth is, and Deemsaw really creates that framework, and even open source Daemon Crypt for use in other projects, and trudging forward for humanity. It's a free product, and it really represents its community well. I know that you and John McAfee and Kim Dotcom have been up to some sneaky things in DEF CON. I know that Kim Dotcom has had some cryptic tweets. I doubt you can tell us a lot about any of those collaborations, um, but I was just wondering what we had in store for DemonSaw 3 and potentially anything that was done with Kim.com if you care to divulge.
Well, that's a great question. So I just want to preface that with just just the statement that as a proposed executive officer of MGT, obviously I cannot comment on things that have not been publicly released through our press channels, our press releases. Um, what I can tell you though is that Kim Dotcom is a good and close personal friend of mine, and he and I reached out to each other about a year ago, and we follow each other on Twitter, and we've had a infrequent exchange of tweets here and there and direct messages over the last year, and I was in the middle of the Demonsaw 3 development cycle a few weeks back, and it's rough. Every year I launch a new version, a new major version of Demonsaw, and I deliver it at DEF CON. But no matter how much time I give myself, because I'm the sole programmer, I never have enough time. So those last 4 to 6 weeks of development are really, really tough. I'm working 16 hours a day. I'm working on my DEF CON talks. I'm working on my DEF CON workshops, plus all the other stuff that goes on in life. And so about 6 weeks ago, I wanted to take 3 days, just escape 3, 4 days, and just go for a little holiday. And so I reached out to Kim.com and I said, we've never met. We've become friends on Twitter. Would you be willing, would you be open for me just to come to New Zealand and hang out with you for a couple of days? And he said, sure. He said, come on out. And I took the trip. Never had flown 14 hours nonstop before, which was extremely painful, but it was well worth it. And I met my friend in person for the first time, and we hung out for a couple of days, and we had a great time. We watched one of the days we hung out was the day that the Brexit came out. We watched that together, and he's become a very good, close personal friend of mine. But it was it was a personal trip. It was I paid for it myself. It was not affiliated with MGT, and it was something that I did because he is a very close and dear friend now, and I want to be supportive of him in his fight. I know he's friends with Steve Wozniak and Glenn Greenwald and Edward Snowden and others who also support his cause and think that the government's been very overreaching and has treated Kim as witches were hunted 200 years ago on the East Coast. I think it's a saddened state that our government's in, and I don't think Kim has been given a fair deal. And as my friend, I'm 100% behind him, and I support the tweets that he announced about Big Cash and getting back into the business. I think that's really cool, and I'm excited for him, and that's pretty much what there is to talk about.
Cool, cool. Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of following behind. I've been following Kim.com's situation since, well, when Mega Upload was still a thing and it was in use. But I'm sure there's a lot of support rallying around all of these things at DEF CON, and a lot of fun as well. I wish I could be there. We're actually going to open it up to a little more roundtable discussion. We've got some people in the chat here. We've got BDAM Smart, I believe, Tech Lords, and Sofuego. Tech Lords, do you have any comments on Deemsaw? I'm not sure if you've checked out the platform yet.
Well, I started to examine the website. I still have a lot of reading to do, but I will surely install it and try it out with you, Gov, in the very near future. So I think it's a great idea, but I'm looking forward to really learning how the platform works. And yeah, but I had one question for our guest. Is it for like, do you need a really high speed internet connection for this to work properly? Let's say there's a lot of people that they say they have a 5 megabyte connection, but they only have like 3, So would that still work okay for with a 3 megabyte connection, let's say?
Definitely, absolutely. The cool thing about, because it's not peer to peer, what happens is we can benefit from higher speed nodes in the middle of the network that can obfuscate and almost buffer the transfer of content in a way that amortizes the data delivery. It basically, in a way that it amortizes the data delivery that peer to peer is not able to achieve. So what I mean by all that is, let's say you and I are on Deemsaw maybe together, and we want the ability to share files. We can go to Volter, or we can go to DigitalOcean, and for $5 a month, we can get a VPS that has 768 megs of memory and 1 terabyte of transfer. I think Volter has a little better deal because they have a gigabit network, and DigitalOcean has 100 megabit. So for Volter, for $5 a month, you can get a terabyte of transfer and 768 megs of memory and 256 megs of hard drive space. That's SSD, and you can host your entire personal Demonsaw network for $5 a month. And then you and I could transfer through that. We can coordinate our groups through that. We basically, and we can add for another $5. We can add a separate instance that becomes our transfer router, and we can divide up our network and we can grow it as necessary. Or say you have 4 friends, each of you gets a VPS and pays $5 a month. Now you have a network of 5 nodes that can handle up to 5 terabytes of transfer a month. So with very, very little investment, financial investment, you can have slow download and upload speeds at home, but transfer extremely, extremely fast where the network speeds are better. And so one slow person in your group is not necessarily going to be a detriment to the overall transfer. There's so many powerful ways to organize your network and set up your network in Demonsaw. And like I said, I've not envisioned them all. I mean, almost every week somebody presents a new one to me that, like I said, the cannabis business of medical marijuana delivery over Demonsaw Android. That's crazy. I've never would have thought that. But you know what? That's awesome, because patients are getting their legal medical marijuana directly delivered to their door through an anonymous and safe platform. I mean, that's the spirit of Demonsaw, and that's why I did this to begin with. We shouldn't have to have our privacy violated. We should be free, and we should be able to live our lives to the best of our ability in the short amount of time we have left.
Yeah, I've definitely always been opposed to the idea of any sort of middleman, even though you've always been forced to have an uncountable amount of middlemen between each interaction on the internet. But I think tech lords would definitely appreciate there's also command line interface rather than a graphical interface. So if you're just running maybe a Linux server to host these things on, pretty smooth, quick setup that you could just connect to remotely. We've also got Sofuego in here with us. I was speaking earlier about video editing and how we might utilize that for storing our clips and breaking up our video files to be manipulated later. And I know that's your area of expertise.
Yeah, actually, in regards to that, I had a couple questions because I'm trying to get my head wrapped around the network because there's a lot of technical things that are over my head. So it is a mesh network in that the files, they're stored on the individual computers, right? So does that mean like if a node goes offline and stuff, the files are inaccessible, or are they distributed among like others in that group?
No, there's very little that I force upon you in Demonsaw. In fact, I don't even auto save. I try to minimize I/O. I don't do anything on your behalf. I don't try to force any of my will on any of the users. So with that, if you shut down your client and you're say you were sharing your financial files or your pre-edited video files, those would be offline. But what you could do is you could use the command line Demonsaw executable, and you could host those files on a $5 VPS node, which is always available. So you don't have to use your personal computer at home. You could store those files on the $5 VPS, and then it would always be on. The cloud right now is a subset of Demonsaw. And I think the best way to think about Demonsaw is it is a superset of the cloud. Demonsaw allows the cloud to exist anywhere. You can have your cloud nodes out there on a VPS in a centralized location that's 24/7 available, or you can bring your cloud into your home, use your laptop as your file server, and when you're offline, your files are not available. It's the on-off switch model. So the cloud is really a subset or a partial version of Demonsaw, a very restrictive version. Demonsaw gives you a lot more control. You also mentioned the documentation aspect, which I want your listeners to understand. Since I've been doing all of this, obviously the documentation is not as thorough and well done as I would like. I've had people in the community help me create docs. A good friend of mine and a Demonsaw community member who goes by the nickname Deca recently did all the docs that are available at docs.demonsaw.com. So there's a lot of people volunteering their time to create tutorials and create docs, but we do recognize it's still not to the state that it needs to be. But we will be putting more video tutorials and more wikis and more documentation out there, especially since 3.0 launched this morning. We do realize that we still are suffering with lack of enough documentation, and that's an area that we're trying to focus in and take care of for you guys. So thank you for your patience in this, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll have a lot more of that there to get you up to speed and running quickly.
I'm gonna have to get myself updated to 3.0. I wasn't aware of the launch yet. I thought that would maybe later today, but that's cool. I understand there's a lot of different choices as far as security to a new user, as far as choosing key sizes and prime sizes. I know that maybe a user that's not really sharing anything too vital might want something lower, but what are the differences in choosing different sizes, and how might that affect your computer while sharing large amounts of data?
That's a great question too. I could write an entire book on the Demonsaw configuration and the Demonsaw security model and the Demonsaw architecture. And maybe if there are some publishers out there that would be interested in that, I would be glad to sign a book deal, because that would be the best way to document everything thoroughly, is put it down in 200 pages. The way that the security model works in Demonsaw is there's 3 layers in 3.0, and there's really 2 layers in 2.0. But there's this, if you think of it in terms of concentric circles, where at the very, very middle of the circle is the client-to-client data. That's the most secret stuff, such as what are you searching for, what is the file data that you're sending, what size is the file, what is your chat message that you're sending me. It's the stuff that's encrypted at that lower level that the routers do not have keys to decrypt. That's the blob that's sent. That's what we call groups, or private groups in Demonsaw. So the social crypto is configured in such a way to create a rolling cipher to encrypt that blob, and the routers have no access to that. So even if you went through a router that was public or honeypotted or even run by the NSA, they would not be able to decrypt that blob. Then on top of that inner layer is this prime size Diffie-Hellman based shared key that's generated. That is an encrypted package that only you and the router you're talking to can decrypt. So if any other clients or any other routers happen to intercept that, they're not going to be able to decrypt that. So basically that protects you from everybody outside of the router you're talking to. And then on top of that is another layer of optional crypto that really prevents clients from interacting with routers they don't have access to. So you could put up a private router that has a group that only if you know the social crypto information can you even log onto that router. So you don't have to worry about people using your routers if you don't want them using your bandwidth. So all these 3 layers of security are disparate and act in their own ways and guarantee network separation from a logical standpoint. The prime size is really, since that falls in the second layer, it depends on a couple of factors. If you own that router that you're connecting to, so by own I mean it's your VPS or it's your computer, you can probably set your prime size low, especially if it's an internal network. But if it's a public router that you're connecting to, you may want to bump it up to at least 1024 bits or even 2048 bits. And it really depends on your needs. If you're in a public router and you don't really care if the router is honeypotted, because you have a private group and you know your social crypto, the blob that you're sharing with other clients is super secure, then maybe you keep your prime size low. So there's a lot of the complexity, inherent complexity of Deemsaw revolves around the unique permutations of options that cater to your specific security needs. And that's why the UI can seem a little overwhelming at times, just because the rabbit hole goes so deep with Deemsaw. So with each new version that comes out, it gets a little bit more complicated, but also I try to work in ways that simplify the process, such as the new wizard screen that you get in Demonsaw 3.0. When you start Demonsaw 3.0, you'll get this pop-up wizard, create a client, 2 buttons later, you're online. These are little things that I'm trying to do to ease the average user into the experience, and video tutorials and wikis and documentation will hopefully bridge that gap from the entry-level user to a more moderate and eventually advanced user of Demonsaw.
Yeah, the user definitely has all the granular control they could want when it comes to Deemsaw. You definitely have a lot of choices based on your situation, like you said. It doesn't leave you wanting a lot more from a sort of application like this for all the uses it has. But as far as the more social aspect of Deemsaw, there are different routers, there are different groups. And I guess, like you said earlier, the best way to find these different routers would be through forum posts or online in other chat, or maybe in something like Bitbucket, or I think it was called Bitbucket, or Demon Bucket, sorry. You might find routers in there, but where would the commonplace be for users to kind of trade these different arenas for their data sharing? I know it's definitely very easy to keep it private, but as far as to make it more public and to give it out to more users, is there anything in the works to facilitate something like that?
Definitely, and that's obviously been a crucial part of the long-term strategy, because the social applications have to bring people together. If you have a social network application that doesn't socialize well, then it really is a terrible social application. Right now, there's a couple quick ways to answer your question, and there's a couple more long-term ways. The first way is the router. I host a message router that's public. That is the built-in one when you start Deemsaw. So when you start Deemsaw 3 or you start Deemsaw 2, you're going to immediately have the option to connect to the router that I host. Think of this router as the tutorial level of an MMORPG game. So if you think about a game like World of Warcraft, or you think about a game like GTA 5, that first level really is all about getting you up to speed with the game mechanics, with gameplay, with the story. It just kind of introduces you into the game with very, very little risk, or very, very little chance that you're going to die. It's kind of a freebie. So that's a great analogy for this public network that I've created. You jump in, you get a feel for it. There's people there all the time, volunteers that are willing to answer your questions, help you with the learning curve. I'm there. I try to be online at least 4 to 8 hours a day. I'm almost always available. I interface directly with the community as much as I possibly can. And in my absence, there are many, many smart people that can answer pretty much all the questions. Once you get that experience built up, there's a couple directions you can go. You can become a warrior. You can become a cleric. You can become a wizard. You can become a paladin. You can become a bard. It's kind of like, in an MMORPG, you kind of follow your own path at that point. And some people transition to the fully private network. They host their own routers. Other people stay. They stay and they share files and they chat and they do what they want. Other people stay on the private network, but they enter a private group. So they kind of disappear from view, but they use some of the resources that I provide to the community. And some of them do a combination. In terms of long-term strategies, where Deemsaw is going in the future, there's a plan. There's always been a plan to do what I call router federation. Router federation is the idea that you could have multiple message routers know about each other. So you could have 100 or 10 or 50 message routers all know about each other, and all you have to do is log on to one of them, and it will appear as if you're in this big monolithic group that's really 100 different routers. So if each router had 1,000 users, and there was 100 in the mix, then when you log on to one of them, it looks like there's 100,000 users. When the reality is there's only 1,000 in yours, but they're all bridged. So that's the ultimate goal and the ultimate strategy, that's not an easy problem to solve. 100,000 user network is a very complicated problem, which is why it's taken some time. If you think about competing technologies like BitTorrent, when we go to a tracker and we go download a file, we're not in a network of 1 million users. We're in a small group of people happen to be seeding and or leeching those files at the time. So you're talking 10, 20, 30 people. That's easy. But once you start getting into thousands and thousands of people in a group, then you start reaching some CPU and memory and server compatibility and scale issues and fault tolerance and redundancy and session propagation. And then all these real enterprise level problems come up that we face for companies hosting websites that have to have all of this as well. So it basically becomes a corporate website problem at that time.
I definitely love the MMO analogy, and I definitely did spend a long time in Demon Bucket. I'm still in Demon Bucket, chatting with people early on, and a lot of people, yeah, I got a lot of answers very quickly. People were very inviting. I expected, I guess, a darker, more mischievous community as I found this application, but it ended up being very inviting. There are a lot of people that are always having a conversation about the platform and are eager to answer questions. There are a lot of good shares as well. I've found different documentation on things. I've found different media from around the web, and I do see very, very far potential for this platform. I see that we have BDAM Smart here. BDAM, are you ready to comment or say something?
Yeah, I just had a question for Elijah. How well does this play with Jitsi or WebRTC? Is it sort of compatible? Is that like, so Jitsi you're required to sign into different types of platforms. So yours would be one of those platforms that we'd sign into, either the Demonsaw or the Demon Bucket.
That's another great question. WebRTC, Jitsi use entirely different technologies. Deemsaw uses all HTTP for all of its communication. It then encrypts the packet as necessary to protect your data, however you configure it. So Deemsaw is full HTTP, and you can send it over any port. It's not a separate protocol like Torrent uses. It actually just, it's kind of very, very similar to an HTTP tunnel is what it does. Is it literally you're posting and you're getting the data every single time. So it's TCP as well. It's not even using UDP. In terms of authenticating or logging in, I've always been a firm believer that any application that requires a registration or a login is not in the best interest for our privacy. I've used Jitsi before, and it's fairly stable. I mean, it works most of the time. But I just don't believe that in our current internet age, it's fair to ask the end users to register and log in. Whether it's register with a new ID or log in with your Facebook ID, I don't think that's a fair request anymore. And we could do that and still be advocates for privacy. Because let's be honest, like if let's say I required you to send me your email when you wanted to download Demonsaw. I mean, why would I even want that? Why would I even want your email? Well, the only reason why I'd want your email is either tracking or the ability to cross sell you. I mean, it would be for selfish reasons that I would ever request that. And not only that, but plausible deniability. If the government comes to me and says, we suspect that a bad person may have logged on to public Demonsaw network 2 weeks ago. Obviously, as a citizen of the United States, we're law-abiding and we have to obey the laws of our land. But I have no logs, nor do I want any. I don't want any personal information about you guys, and I don't want companies to have personal information about me. I think in my DEF CON 22 talk said, I don't know what you're sharing, and nor do I want to know. I mean, I really don't. So it's a different approach. Jitsi uses an older model, basically, of authentication.
Yeah, I agree with you completely there on that. But my concern is if it's only HTTPS, then we're having to deal with the like at DEF CON right now. Right before it started, they had the machine battles. So now they've completely taken us out of the loop, and now they've created this machine to go ahead and track you down. So, I mean, it actually kind of scares me in a way, because now you have these developers, these 7 developers, develop their own little machine, and now what they're going to do is they're going to take that open code that they just gave to them, and then they copied it all, and now they're going to put it all together and make one awesome machine that's more or less going to be able to track you down and attack you whether you like it or not. You see what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And I think there are a lot of protocols out there that applications can use. In fact, I could design my own protocol. I mean, Deemsaw does have its own protocol that is hidden within HTTP, but it's wrapped in an HTTP layer. There are a lot of choices when building an app. I chose HTTP as the wrapper for Demonsaw because it's so easy to go through firewalls, because no firewall is going to block HTTP traffic. It's just not going to happen, or HTTPS. Just to cite some examples of what you can do right now with Demonsaw, and I want to throw out the disclaimer that in no way am I condoning illegal or illicit behavior, especially at your work. But here's what you can actually do with Demonsaw right now. You can install it. You can put it on a thumb drive. You can take it to work. You can plug it into your laptop. You can start it, and you can share your C drive. And I can download your entire C drive from you, and your IT won't even know. And that's totally possible. There's no installation. It's very, very difficult. Just recently, Palo Alto finally created a firewall rule to detect Demonsaw traffic. And that was only because I put zero effort into hiding some of the uniqueness of how I use HTTP. But you can share your entire C drive from within your company with Demonsaw without having to open any firewall ports. So there's huge benefits of using HTTP, because in essence you really tunnel through proxies and firewalls is what you're doing.
So does that go well with the onion? What's the log where it changes? Tor, yeah.
Oh, routing through Tor?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely use Demonsaw with Tor. We have people that do it. You're going to get a performance hit, obviously. In fact, you're going to get a performance hit if you use Tor anyway. But you'll slow things down. You can also use Demonsaw through proxies and VPNs if you want to hide your IP. You can always tack on more technologies to increase the anonymity. I mean, all 3 of those right now are basically increasing anonymity. And Demonsaw is not designed to take an approach like Tor and try to bounce your traffic through a variety of nodes and then eventually hit an exit node. It's not designed to try to guarantee anonymity by confusing the traffic patterns. Rather, it's designed to give you the level of anonymity you need based on where you're at. So if you have the money to pay $15 a month and get 3 VPSs and host routers there, then you own the endpoints for 15 bucks or $5 a month. And with the exception of the NSA backdooring that VPS or a malicious sysadmin, sniffing your traffic possibly, or unplugging your box, I mean, you're pretty safe at that point, especially if you use groups and all of your traffic's encrypted. The anonymity is really a sliding scale. I mean, there's no such thing as true anonymity. There's networks like ZeroNet and Freenet and MadeSafe and others that are trying to, and Ethereum and others that are trying to guarantee anonymity. But if I don't have the need of hiding an IP, and you find out my IP, but you have no idea what I'm doing from that IP, is that enough for me? And in a lot of cases, it is. So once again, instead of forcing you into a paradigm and saying, nope, your IP must be sacred and never known, I give you the option to choose and to move that slider. It's a balanced approach to security. The more secure you need to be, the more anonymous you need to be, the more options I present in that direction. But if you're sharing cat pics with your friend from college, then you probably aren't going to need anonymous IPs.
Yeah, everybody's just looking for the trace route and whatever your home ISP is. You just don't want that to be like super simple to get to.
Definitely, absolutely, definitely, and I mean, anonymity is a really fun topic. A lot of people lump it together with security and encryption in general, but it really is a completely separate problem, and it has to be solved in an entirely different way. The way I quote unquote, solved it or deal with it, solving is probably not the right word. The way I approach anonymity is I give you the options to implement it at the network topology level to meet your needs. But that's not probably going to solve everybody's needs. For people who need truly anonymous traffic, then there's the options of VPN or proxies or Tor. In the future of Deemsaw, we'll also see routers being able to act as proxies with the ability to hop. On Thursday, I announced the enterprise version of Deemsaw called Clear Skies. And one of the features that I'm adding to Clear Skies, which is powered by Deemsaw, is the ability to, through a use of SOCKS 5 proxies and other technology, to use clients in a private group as exit nodes like Tor with layers of social crypto. So you'll be able to set up your own privatized Tor network and bounce traffic through all the clients in your group, just like you owned all the Tor exit nodes. And this is a powerful technology that's going to increase anonymity, because the definition of a group is that there's some sort of pre-established trust. So this is an exciting thing that will hopefully replace a lot of need for VPNs and proxies and Tor in the future. But that's still going to take a while to develop and to test out, and that's not an easy thing to code either.
Okay. One last question, then, and I'll let somebody else run with it. But did you mess with the like McAfee did initially when he came out with his little pocket thing he was trying to produce? He was messing with the ISO shell, the package itself. He's like, well, I'm gonna change that and encrypt it in a different way that it only matters because it's in my network.
So your question, just to make sure I understand, is if we're a WAN or a LAN based, do I encrypt differently?
No. Have you taken the ISO model and changed it so that it's not atypical, or so that it's just a different? If you know what your package is going to be and going to look like, if you change that aspect of it, then nobody can mess with it, nobody can see it, nobody can view it, nobody can decrypt it. And that was his concept behind it. So I was just curious if you went that route within your own little application, because like the only thing that matters is the ends. Like what the routers care about is, well, what's the end and what's this end and where's it going? So like, but the information in the middle could be totally unique or packaged in whichever way you desire.
Got it. Okay, so yeah, this has been something that a lot of these more traditional anonymous decentralized networks have brought up, like like a free net or like a other peer-to-peer apps have brought this up, introducing either false packets or extending the packet size or normalizing packet size or trying to confuse or minimize traffic analysis success through I guess it's just disguising the side and the payload of the packets. This is something I'm not doing, and here's why. Because I want Deemsaw to be fast. A chat message is obviously going to be much, much smaller than a chunk of a file. So for me to make all messages the same size and introduce either random bytes or normalizing it in a certain way, I don't want to. I don't want to introduce anything that's going to decrease the performance of Demonsaw. I want it to be fast because most of the use cases out there, they really want to send chats or download files or upload files quickly, and so I didn't want to do anything that would be a detriment to the performance of the network or the scalability of the network by trying to solve a problem that, to be honest, is probably intractable anyway. I mean, at that point, you're basically obfuscating your traffic in hopes that you'll confuse firewalls and analysis software. That's like DRM. That's like using DRM to try to stop hackers from watching a Blu-ray on their favorite media player and not going through the proper channels. So that's the approach I took. I erred on the side of performance. If it's not fast, people won't use the product, and that's something I learned the last couple of years.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, but I do want to say though that what you just spoke to has a valid. I mean, it definitely has validity, and it's something that I do think about often, and my thoughts do go back to that on whether normalization of all packets is a feature that might be desirable from an opt-in perspective later on, because I could definitely see the need of it for a certain subset of users.
Well, maybe not a subset of users, but a subset of things that you're transferring. You see what I mean? So like maybe there would be a specific time that you would want to do that. Say, so if I am taking a super secret file from my C drive and I'm wanting to transport it somewhere else over the network, then I want that to be, not gainable. But if I'm just chatting with somebody, I could care less if somebody reads my chat.
True. Yeah, it's something that I like I said, I do think about. I go back, my thoughts kind of stray to it every now and then, and who knows what the future is going to hold with it. But I do enjoy writing code and building software that subverts network detection devices and firewall rules. That makes me extremely happy.
I would have
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tekla.
just a quick question. I'm a Linux user. I've been a Linux user for years, and I was wondering if you have a a Windows 10 user using your platform. We all heard that Microsoft is getting a lot of data from the activity of a user of Windows 10. So what's your point of view on that?
Well, I'm a privacy activist. So anytime a company or a government will do something against the will of the people and against the common good and a clear violation of privacy, such as Microsoft's done or such as a variety of companies have done in the past, I'm strongly opposed to any sort of privacy violation, and I believe that technology and the will of the people will set us free. I mean, I firmly believe that we are smarter and stronger and better equipped than the governments and the corporations that are against us. And so, yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think it's the way we fix that problem is stop using their platforms and stop using their products, which is why Demonsaw launches on Linux alongside Windows. They're equal partners. Like I won't launch a new version of Demonsaw without having the Linux build. In fact, with 3.0, we do a native Debian 8.5 build, absolutely native with GCC 4.9.2. You install 8.5, there's nothing more you need to do. You literally gnzip it, you untar it, and you're good to go. You run that thing. And it has the permissions baked in. It literally just runs itself. It's that type of native integration to Linux that I'm committed to supporting as long as I'm working on Demonsaw. The way we solve the problem is let's not use the cloud, let's not use Dropbox, let's not use Windows. That's an easy fix.
Okay, but I'm going to refine my question a little bit. If somebody's on Windows 10 and uses your platform, is there a risk that his activity will be recorded by the Microsoft Corporation?
I think you raise an interesting point. It's to be honest, it's not the interoperability cross OS in terms of security leakage is not something I've thought about before with respect to Demonsaw. So it's a really, really good question. To be honest, I'd have to think about it more because one could extend that argument to the fact that the entire internet is vulnerable from Windows users, right? I mean, that would be the natural evolution of this thought, which might not be far off. I mean, it might not be untrue. It's one of the ways I think of fixing that, at least a really, really easy way of fixing that would be to create a group, a private group within Demonsaw that only Linux users could have access to. So maybe one of the rows in your group tab is a local file on your Debian install that is only installed in the Debian OS that Microsoft users by default don't have access to. It could be as simple as that. So you could potentially have a private group that just prevents Windows users from having that. You could also construct private groups that you have some sort of vetting process by which only your friends that use Linux even get the information on how to join. So if that's definitely a concern, then there are ways to go around that and prevent Windows users from even joining. You could also add a group to your router, and once again have an extra layer of security there. But I would have to think about that more because, like I said, I hadn't really thought about the long-term security implications of any sort of extra vulnerability due to Microsoft and Prison and the government's backdooring on the Windows platform. But it's something I will think about.
Well, thank you very much for your answer.
Yeah, there's definitely you have to think about that as far as any sort of vulnerability could undermine the security of many platforms. It's about the security of your machine, and I do really, really like the idea of Linux-only based groups or some sort of having to match some sort of protocols to be able to share between one another. But also, I think Corey had a question to ask.
Actually, I'm not sure because, maybe this will benefit the people that are less technically inclined like myself, because I'm not sure if you were addressing it in the packets, but I was wondering how Demonsaw handles like scalability. So if you got a particular group and, there's more users, does that slow down things a lot where it's like more beneficial to have smaller groups? And how much does, like proximity affect the speed of the network?
Great questions. Well, proximity is it definitely. I'll start with the second one. Proximity is definitely going to affect the overall transfer speed. There's two aspects to that. There's the proximity of the uploaders, and there's the proximity of you as the downloader. And so you can't really control the proximity of the uploaders to the transfer routers that you use. What you can control in 3.0 is you can whitelist all the transfer routers that you want to use, and you can ensure that those are close to you. So let's say, just for sake of argument, that you're in, let's say you're in Atlanta, Georgia, in the U.S., and you look at some of the transfer routers, and there's one in Atlanta, and there's one in Houston, and there's one in Miami, and there's one in New Jersey, and there's one in Chicago, and there's one in Seattle and L.A. What you can do is you can say, well, the one in Chicago, Seattle, and L.A. are kind of too far, so I don't want to use those. I just want to use the other 4 or 5 that are closer. You can whitelist those, and you will only transfer through those based on your proximity. Now, you might be downloading a file from somebody in the Ukraine, in which case the proximity doesn't really help them much, because you've dictated the nodes through which you only will receive transfers. But for you, it makes it really, really fast. In terms of scalability, scalability is always a concern, especially when a network-based application like Demonsaw. The scalability question can be addressed in a couple ways. We talked about router federation earlier, which is one of the key ways on how we address scalability. So instead of forcing everyone to a subset or a certain set of routers, you can force them to anyone they want as long as those routers are federated. That's the ideal architecture for the future, and that also provides an extra layer of obfuscation for the end users as well. So it's kind of a hop-based approach for proxies. But other things that I've done, and even more so in 3.0 to help with scalability, is the entire application is written in C++. It's actually C++ 11. It's fast, it's efficient code. I'm really, really good at writing C++. When I worked at Rockstar, I was part of the engine development team, and one of the things we did was optimization. So I managed memory, I did streaming, I did optimization. So I do have a background in that. But at some point, only a certain number of users are going to be able to join a router. And that limit is really the total number of ports that can be open. So we have 2 to the 16 ports that are possible on a given NIC interface or a given IP address. And that's an inherent limitation of the operating system already. So as long as we can scale on a given box to a decent subset of the total number of port numbers, then that should at least get us to the point where router federation is a possibility. Even web servers have trouble with scaling beyond a couple thousand users concurrent. So what do they do to solve that? They load balance, they session propagate, they do other things. Load balancing and session propagation are also in the works for the future in Demonsaw to help scale more. So I think it's been a journey of scalability so far. 1.0 did not scale very well. 2.0 did a little better job. 3.0 does much better. And I think when we add session propagation, load balancing, and router federation, we'll be able to scale like any sort of enterprise website does.
I think this idea of router federation really, it really makes sense to me, and it really resonates with a lot of these decentralized, distributed sort of infosec communities. I know that GNU Social and Minds.com both work avidly on a sort of federation type thing that it is one of those things that does take a little bit to understand what and how things are happening. But as far as bridging all of those connections between trust, but also balancing and managing that trust without it allowing to go back into a state of centralization where you consent to a lot of mystery trust, I guess. Like we have in the internet today, you create your first connection, and you're consenting to a ton of connections in between, and so we really have to. Demonsaw does a really great job of keeping things granular as far as everything that the user has control over. But as far as consenting to large groups within a federation, a balance will have to be found, or at least a consent or understanding of what the user is getting themselves into, I suppose. But it's a very cool balance that we all sort of, all of these different communities sort of mingle around these same topics and issues that come up within the decentralized revolution. I also agree that it's very much about microtransactions, in that we sort of choose which services to acknowledge and which services stand for us, and definitely using DemonSaw instead of Dropbox or Google Drive and these other services that do not support the user. Every single person counts and every single person matters in this fight, to choose these services that matter to them. Tech or Sofuego, did you have anything to add?
I can't think of anything at the moment.
Well, I'm starting to like what I'm hearing, especially when our guest talked about the Linux side of things. I mean, my ideal world would be everybody on Linux, but I know that Windows still has a big share of the market. Um, is there Can we create on your platform different like separate groups? One group for sharing, one group for chatting, and can we separate them?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. In fact, before I talk about that, I agree with your vision of a Linux-only world, my friend. It's when people talk about what's your most pleasant fantasies and dreams, I think that's in the top 10 for me too. So, but yeah, you can definitely create a group for chatting, a group for sharing, a group for whatever you want. You can create a group for sharing personal information just with yourself, like your financial documentation, or like I tell people, if you wanted to use it for remote access, you could theoretically share your entire C drive or share your documents folder or do whatever you want. Deemsaw makes it really easy by you simply click on the plus button, and by clicking on the plus button, you're giving you're starting another client, and that client can have one group. So that client can be in the public group on a certain router, or that client can be on a private group. And a lot of people have 2, 3, 4 clients active in a given toolbar, and each one has a different. You can think of it as a different. I don't want to use the word identity, but it's a different group membership. And in absence of a group membership, it merely defaults to the public group. You can even configure your router to deny public groups, which is a cool feature one of our community members recommended a few months ago. If you configure your message router, you can say only allow private groups. So there is no public group on this message router, and enforce that extra layer of crypto if you want. One of the things I did want to share is, I programmed a long time, and I think of myself as a fairly decent programmer, and pretty good at what I do. But obviously I'm human, so I do make mistakes from time to time, and I do recognize that as fast as I iterate, and I made DemonSaw 3.0 in a little less than 6 months from the ground up. I'm not fast enough to be happy with my progress, and I do realize that there are features that I want to add, and I've been wanting to add for a year or more, that just haven't yet made it. They're on the cutting block, and they just get snapped off at the last moment. So there are things like router federation and other things that like file synchronization. Is a two-way file sync is another thing that is right there on the cusp of just me doing one day. That has always been pushed back with every single release. So it's just a matter of time before there'll be no more reason to use Dropbox and Box. The reality of software like DemonSaw is it's going to set us free as individuals to share however we want. But there's a couple more hurdles we have to clear first, and one of those is going to be better tutorials, an easier using interface. The UI and the UX still have improvement to be made even after 3.0, and additional features like file sync. So we're only about we're not quite halfway, I think, through our journey yet with DemonSaw. I think we have a long way to go, and we have a lot of awesome things to add, and I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to work on it, and I fully envision we'll easily get up to DemonSaw 8.0, 9.0, and possibly even beyond. So this is, I'm here for the long journey, and hopefully you guys are as well.
in it for the long haul. We're all sort of supporting internet freedom together, privacy for the user. It's been great having you. We got a lot more answers than I even bargained for. DemonSaw 3.0 when it updates. When I can get my hands on an update. I've been keeping an eye on things at DEF CON. I hope you guys have a ton of fun. I think we're going to bring things off the air and do a little after show. And it's been great having you. Thanks for coming.
Hey, thank you guys again for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I'll be glad to join you anytime in the future. So all you got to do is ask. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's about it. We're going to stay to chat a little more. So thanks for all the people that listen to this broadcast. And there we go.